This is the most important documentary that you've probably never seen.
Sometimes you know what you're supposed to be doing. And when you know what you're supposed to be doing, it's somebody else's job to kill you.
Somehow it only has 250 logs on Letterboxd. That's gotta change. Because did you know that Rosa Parks trained in East Tennessee before she led the Montgomery bus boycott? Martin Luther King Jr. too, and Ralph Abernathy, and Bernard Lafayette, John Lewis, Julian Bond, Diane Nash, Anne Braden, so many of the civil rights leaders of the 20th century were trained here. The place they trained at was called the Highlander Folk School, and this documentary is called You Gotta Move, and it showcases 6 ordinary people in the South who became involved in social activism, and how the school, now known as the Highlander Center, encouraged and helped them do it. Now, the school was far from being the only reason Rosa Parks refused to give her seat up. As Charles Blow writes, quote, she spent nearly 2 decades before the bus incident struggling, organizing, and agitating for civil rights, mostly as the secretary of the Montgomery, Alabama branch of the NAACP. But it wasn't until Parks was in her 40s and attended an integrated workshop that she found, for the first time in my adult life, that this could be a unified society.
Rosa said that at Highlander, it was the first time in her life she'd met white people she could trust. She'd never been in a place where you could demonstrate by everything that happened that you believed in full social equality.
That workshop was at the Highlander Folk School, and it was taught by Highlander founder Miles Horton and Septima Clark, who was the director of workshops at the school and who was criminally underknown as an American hero. She was, quote, the mother of the civil rights movement, according to Martin Luther King Jr. Rosa Parks had been demoralized about the hope of white people working together with black people for racial justice, but seeing Clark and Horton leading the workshop together and the totally desegregated nature of the school, and, quote, spending 2 weeks alongside 47 others strategizing for school desegregation began to lift her spirits. She was in awe of Septima Clark, who ran the workshop, and how calm and courageous she was. And to tell you the truth, I get it, because this is a truly mind-warping documentary if you grew up in East Tennessee. I mean, I literally grew up less than an hour from the school, and not only did I not get taught about it, I never really saw any cultural stuff about Southern black people and Southern white people working together.
It's just the injustice, I think. You know, like black people ain't had justice, poor people ain't had justice. Sometimes I feel like Martin Luther King, you know, I've got a dream too. I know he had a dream, I've got a dream. It's just the injustice in the world. Let them know we here and that we care and they should care about us.
And where that has taken me is taking stands against the Vietnam War, taking stands for homosexual rights, taking stands with Native Americans on women's issues, against militarism, against the draft, against toxic waste, for the environment.
Instead, I learned about Robert E. Lee Day, which is on the books for January 19th, a date you might also know sometimes as Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Guess which one got a proclamation every year by the governor all the way until 2020? Yeah. But in this movie, there are 5 stories of both black people and white people who all learned at the school together. You got Bernice Robinson, who was, quote, a black beautician who became the first teacher of a literacy program in South Carolina, who, quote, taught adults to read and write in order to pass voter registration requirements during the mid-1950s and 1960s throughout the southern states.
They'd say, well, we don't have a leader in our community. And we said, well, what about you? Well, no, I'm not a leader, they would say. But we say, you know the problem. If you know the problem, you see the problem. You know what needs to be done to solve that problem. Then you're the one that have to take the ball and run with it.
There's Rebecca Simpson in Kentucky, who thought of herself as an uneducated housewife who grew to become a leader in land reclamation against coal mining companies who were destructively strip mining the entire region.
I thought probably if you tried to do things like I've done, you'd need like a college degree. But if you ain't got it, you have to go on without it. So I found out you don't have to be educated, to do what you have to do.
There's Bill Saunders, a worker in a mattress factory who helped hospital workers successfully unionize in Charleston.
I went to pool rooms and bars and nightclubs and other places and met with people, with beauticians and barbers and black restaurants that giving strikers food free or doing the hair. There was just so many things that were really a part of that. All of the organizing was done from within. It's like the gospel song, Lucie, that maybe I cannot sing like angels or maybe I cannot preach like Paul, but I can tell this story or I can do this like nobody else can. And that is the kind of motivation that we did with the hospital workers. We had guys that just was able to tell stories, make people laugh when we were in jail. There were people that did sing. There were people that did stand up and look ugly and scared people. So we were able to make sure that they understood where they had a role to play and they felt good about it.
And Bernice Johnson Reagan, a college student who became a civil rights leader in Albany, Georgia.
So I can look at some of the things we did and I said, what in the world came over us, Death had nothing to do with what we were doing. If somebody shot us, we would be dead. And when people died, we cried. And we went to funerals. And we went and did the next thing the next day.
And Gail Story and Mary Lee Rogers, who, and if you follow my channel, you'll know this, floored me, successfully organized their community and stopped illegal hazardous dumping in East Tennessee that was poisoning their town.
A guy from Guatemala, he's got a problem. And it is a chemical that America banned, and they took there,
But that's the importance of getting the word out, because we didn't know that. We didn't didn't know that the United States was banning chemicals that are bad for us and send them to other countries and then send them back to us through food. I don't want my children to die. I want to leave them with clean mountains and fresh air and these rivers. I want them to know all these things that we've grown up knowing. We can't leave it up to somebody else to say it. We've got to. We've got to say no more. We don't want nuclear war. We don't want no more bombs built. We don't want no more waste dumped in the mountains and the hollers. We don't want no more streams polluted. I don't want to see fish die.
I'm going to try and cover all the stories on my channel, but I highly recommend watching the whole thing, which is streaming on Criterion right now, because critically, the entire point of it is that every one of these folks started out just like me or just like you watching this video right now, seeing horrible things happening, wishing that something could be done about it, thinking that maybe nothing can be done, because just like me and probably many of you, the people in the movie themselves were unaware of what had been done before them.
I knew that something had to be done, but I didn't know I would be involved in getting anything done because nothing had been done before that I knew of. You see, and this is the problem because these things aren't passed down to know what had really been done. I didn't know what my daddy had done to make changes in working conditions. So naturally when I came back, I became involved in everything and anything that would bring about some changes.
But they learned, they got involved, and they won, which we can too. Strike that actually, which we will too.
We preach this all the time to people. Don't look for anybody else to be a leader. You start doing it yourself. You're as good as anybody else in doing it because you know what the problem is. You know the way you like things to be. So why not work on it?